Paralympics GB have today confirmed the final 12 competitors who will make up the squad of 25 travelling to Milan and Cortina for the Paralympics. Amongst them is Davy Zyw, who will be part of the snowboard team and is making a little bit of history. He has Motor Neurone Disease and is believed to be the first snow sport athlete to compete with that condition. He joins us live this afternoon. Good afternoon. Hearing that then, Davy, how proud does that make you to make that little bit of history?
Good afternoon, Rob. I'm beyond words, really. It's of course, it's a big personal achievement. In fact, I've had to earn my place with Paralympics GB, and I'm delighted and very honoured to represent my country at the games. But this isn't my achievement. It's for every single person who's been affected, who's died, who's lived through, who's had loved ones being affected by this devastating neurological condition. So my place at the Paralympics is for them. I ride and represent for the Motor Neurone Disease and all neurological disease community.
As far as I'm aware, as well as the snowboarding, you're a wine buyer, so I assume you celebrated with something quite nice, did you?
I had, I got the news late last week, and I did. You're quite right, Rob. I had a few choice bottles ready to open, on whether we were going to be commiserating or celebrating. So the fact we got the good news, and of course I'm going to make history. But yeah, we celebrated with some very nice bottles with a few friends and family last week.
Well, feel free to sling any offcuts in this direction. They'll be happily received, I can tell you. Let's talk seriously about your diagnosis, because I think the average life expectancy when you get diagnosed is around 2 to 3 years. That was 7 years ago that you got your diagnosis. What did you tell yourself when you found out about what you wanted your life to look like from that moment onwards?
Oh, boy, Rob, difficult question. And I had to answer a lot of very difficult questions when I was diagnosed. Age of 30, living in my prime, work was going well. I had a fantastic lifestyle and life, living with my girlfriend and a few friends in London. And of course, the fabric of my life got torn apart. I thought, what am I going to be doing with my last few years on this planet? And I had to wait with family basically to see how the disease was going to manifest itself within me. And the first few things I wanted to do were, of course, just start living without compromise in the same way. I suppose I enjoy my life in London, but one of the first things I did was move back to Edinburgh, back to Scotland, where I'm from, with my girlfriend, who quickly became my fiance. And yeah, my wife Evie was the one of the first things we did. And I had to answer, a lot of big questions about how I wanted to spend my last few years on the planet. And here I am, 7 years on, living, far past the average life expectancy for anyone with motor neurone disease. And I feel incredibly grateful. I wasn't grateful. I wasn't lucky. I've never been lucky to be diagnosed with this, currently incurable neurological illness. But I feel incredibly lucky to be living a full life. Just I had to work hard, of course, but just earned my place with Paralympic GB to represent and snowboard at the Paralympic Games. So I feel incredibly lucky and fortunate in the fact that I'm living with my condition. Yes, I'm challenged every day. My condition is progressively getting worse. We always knew it would, but I've managed to keep the progressive nature of the disease at bay, and I feel incredibly grateful for that.
So it wasn't something that, when you found out this was a sort of clear goal that you wanted, was it a case that, I know you snowboarded as a kid, did you just pick it back up and it sort of went from there a little bit? Yeah,
I've done a lot of cycling, a lot of fundraising for My Name's Dolly Foundation, who are amazing, who have raised their horizons for everyone living with MND in the UK and around the world. But I've done that generally on my bike over the last few years. But snowboarding absolutely is my number one sport, my number one passion. I started at Hill End Tri-Slope on the artificial slope outside Edinburgh with my twin brother. And I snowboarded actively through my teens. I got to a stage where I had a few sponsors. I used to compete in big air and slopestyle events. I was never the best, but I was in the mixer, and I was in the mixer because I loved it, and it's always been a huge passion of mine. A knee injury in my sort of late teens, trajected me into a career in the wine trade, which you've already mentioned. And snowboarding continued to be a hobby, but very recreationally. I'd go to the snow dome again, and now and again I'd go to Hill End Dry Slope, and I'd go on holiday. But it was never something serious. It was just a pure passion of mine. And in fact, this, you got to count my stars. The fact that this illness, this incurable neurological disease, has enabled me to become a snowboarder, which was my childhood teenage dream. There's a sort of tragic beauty in this situation scenario. So the fact that MMD has brought me to the Paralympics.
This is maybe a stupid question, but what does MND do in terms of the snowboarding? How much more difficult does it make the same sport that you did before the diagnosis?
Yeah, so it's a really valid question, but I'd sort of just first and foremost say, my teammates on Paralympics GB, the people I compete against on the mountain, everyone's living through incredible, the human endeavor, the spirit of these athletes is just amazing, who have gone through, car accidents, childhood traumas, shock attacks, birth, challenges at birth. Everyone's competing with their own challenges, and mine is MMD. MMD, it manifests itself differently with everyone. My challenges are basically I've got very little muscle in my upper body at all. So gravity is my weight. When I go to the gym, I'm working against gravity rather than anything else. But so I've got very little strength, dexterity, and movement in my hands, in my arms, my shoulders, and my neck. My neck's been a real challenge for me this competitive season. Just with the G-force that you go through in these bank turns, it puts a lot of pressure on your upper body, and it's a very physical sport. So I'd say overall the physicality of the sport, I'm compromised by my condition. And I suppose when you're racing too, of course, every millisecond is critical. And my pull out of the gate, because I've got very little strength at all in my arms, which means I sort of dribble out the starting gates rather than rocket. So I've got to work again with that to make up time in other places in the course. So I'm working through my challenges.
Having said all that, listening to you speak a little bit earlier on in another interview, you're very much not of the opinion that you're there to have a good time and get the free kit, which looks lovely, by the way, but you want to go there and you want to compete and you want to give the best performance you can possible too.
Absolutely. This is, I've worked so hard to get to the situation where I'm in, and I feel very, very, very grateful to be here. But the Olympics is a global stage. It's the greatest stage for any athlete in any sport. So the gravity of that situation is I'm very much aware of it, and I'm training as hard as I can to make sure I can ride my best race. In a couple of weeks in Cortina. Of course, there's there's a lovely shine to the games where it be the glad that the free kit, the travel, and everything goes with it. But when it boils down to the fundamentals of what the Olympics is, it is the greatest competition for your sport. So I want to make sure that I'm riding my best race on the day.
Yeah, I'm always sort of wary that you don't want it to sound patronising, but what you've achieved is absolutely amazing. So congratulations on making the team, and have a brilliant time out there. You're a Paralympian and no one can ever take that away from you. Well done.
Rob, thank you so much.